Please give Clint and Luke your warmest welcome.
All right, well, appreciate the invite. It's nice when you walk into a room and you know everybody in it, so it's good to see my friends again. Have a seat. Luke and I are going to divide the talk up and kind of explain how we got into beekeeping and how you do it, and we'll talk about some of the products that we have. First, let me explain. I get this question a lot. Why are you, my wife actually was one of the first ones to ask me this, why do you want to do this now? Well, growing up, working with Dad, y'all know where I come from, working with my father as a taxidermist. We always worked with my father since my earliest memory. We get up, we go to work with Dad. We work with Dad. When we got home from school, we worked with Dad. You know, so it's just, that's what we did. And I was looking, for the last several years, looking for a way that we could incorporate some type of business into our homeschooling. And it's hard to find a business that's going to fit with what we do. You could run cattle, but that takes effort. And I can just imagine myself being at work, being at court, and getting a phone call, your cow's out. You know, so I'd have to call Winston probably to go get it in there for me. So it's just not, that just didn't fit with what I was looking for. And growing up, Daddy would tell us stories about his youth and how he had beehives. And we just were always mesmerized hearing these stories. And Ben and I would go into the woods and we would look for beehives. And occasionally we would find beehives, and usually our method of getting the honey was we'd bring our shotguns and we'd shoot the beehives, put pans on the ground, and we'd shoot the beehive, and then it would drip honey into the pans. And that's how we would collect our honey. When it was high up, usually the hives were high up and we couldn't get to them. And so anyway, just fast forwarding a few decades, when we had our first child, Claire, she at a young age started developing allergies. And we tried different things, and we got to the point where, you know, going to the doctors, and it was just to the point where we either had to make that leap and start the allergy shots or find something that would work. And this is probably around 1996. And before that time, really I had not consumed local honey. I had moved beyond the days of hearing the stories that Daddy was telling, because I had already gone off to college and law school and started my family and my practice. But I was in Iota at that point in time, and we found out that Aubrey Dietz, who is just a guy that lived in the woods, just a nice gentleman, but he was very much a guy that lived in the woods. You know, he lived off the land, and part of the Dietz clan in that area. And Aubrey would harvest honey anywhere he could get it, and he did it just. He didn't have a sophisticated operation. He just got the honey. He had a few hives, but he'd go rob wild hives. So we started buying honey, and we noticed that it made a tremendous difference in the health of Claire. She went from, you know, needing to take. She was taking Claritins on a regular basis. And back then, I think it might have even been prescription, but she was taking them just all the time. And it went from having to take Claritins and still having the symptoms to being a lot better. And just over the years of doing that, I mean, we were happy, everything was going well. And then Aubrey passed away about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. When Aubrey passed away, I had nowhere to buy local honey. And we had been really searching for a way to incorporate a honey business. So that was sort of the impetus for getting into beekeeping. And it took me probably about 1.5 years of just kind of researching, a little time here and there. And then finally I just made that step forward and purchased some beehives. We started out with 6 hives. And Luke kind of shared my interest with it, so this is something that he and I can do together, and we ended up roping in the girls. But we come to find out, whenever I made the decision to buy some beehives, I was talking with Daddy, and Daddy started telling me a little bit more about the history of our family. And he shared with me that his grandfather, who had immigrated to the United States in 1912, my grandfather was 9 when they came over as a family, so my grandfather was, I guess, in his 20s or whatever, but he had beehives. So, you know, John Bischoff, my great-grandfather, was a farmer in the branch community. And I suspect there's a lot of German farmers, beekeeping was a way of life for them. And he had beehives. And my grandfather, kind of skipped over my grandfather. My grandfather was a farmer and a dairy farmer. But my daddy took off, I guess, from his grandfather, learning about beekeeping and having hives. So I found that really interesting, that it really tied into part of my heritage. The old saying, sometimes you're born with it's in your blood. I guess for me, it's probably the case, because when you put on a bee suit and it's 90 degrees or 95 degrees, I mean, you got to really like doing it, because it's it's hot. It's not for the weak at heart. You have to really enjoy working with bees. They can get on you pretty quick, and you're going to get stung no matter what you wear, what you use. We try to maintain about 50 hives. The industry, beekeeping industry, is an industry that is beset with a real dilemma. It's called colony collapse disorder. Some of you have heard about it. Bees are now a rare commodity, very hard to get. The demand for bees is strong. The supply is very low. Louisiana supplies most of the country. Bees are produced here in Louisiana while the snow is still very thick on the ground up north. And so the bees that are produced here are shipped all over the world, all over the country, and even to many third world countries. So it's hard to find bees. And existing in the wild, bees are even harder to find. I didn't see the first bee in Millwater. He would grow in a garden. We didn't see any bees. Clover in the yard, we wouldn't see any bees. And we brought our hives and we noticed a difference in our garden. So it really made a huge difference. So bees are, you lose about half your colonies. A colony is a queen and anywhere from 10,000 bees on up. That's a colony, a group of boxes. And so you'll lose about half your hives each year unless you become very good at maintaining your hives against the things that you can at least control, like hive beetles. We keep our hives in Millwater and Iota, Gotts Cove, and at my dad's, which is just a little north of Millwater. I'm probably going to put some next year on my mom's property where she grew up, which is next to my Uncle Ben's place out just west of Eunice. Many of you know where that, probably all know where that's located, but just past the Oleander on Highway 190. And I'm going to put some hives there again, just because, more for nostalgia purposes. It's kind of neat to produce honey from where you're from, and that was her roots. And so, but I think I'm going to go ahead and at this time call on Luke and let Luke explain some of just kind of go over the items that we've brought with us and explain some of these items. We have honey too for y'all to sample, and then we'll talk. Luke's going to explain what it's like on a day when we actually extract honey. So Luke, probably you want to speak right there or speak at the mic. If you don't speak at the microphone, they won't pick it up too well. But go ahead and just take the item and show them.
We use the smoker we fill it with pine needles and we light them, and it produces pretty thick smoke, and we puff it and it comes out, and we use it to drive the bees down so they're not all over, so you can see and not kill as many. And the hive tool this is a hive tool. We use this to move the frames and get them out because they split down with wax. So it's very hard to get out with your hands, and you just get it open like that. The bee brush we use to just sweep the bees out the way for capturing a wild hive. If they're on a limb, sweep them into a box, or just get them off the frame for whatever we're doing at that time. This is how a frame comes, and this is after a week or two you put it in the hive, they draw it out. This is just full of wax. That's the difference. They drew the wax out, and they will fill this with honey or brood, and they will cap it. And this is a bee suit which we use to keep bees off us.
In theory.
Does it work?
Pretty good. That's how a box of a hive usually is. It's usually higher. This is the introducer. There's the different sizes. This is the largest, and this is the smallest. If it's a weaker, you usually put on the small. That's how they get in and out. Or if it's a big hive, put it on the bigger setting, and they can get in and out more at a time. Well, we usually do a weekend. We start probably a Friday afternoon, probably a Saturday. Friday afternoon, Saturday, we start and we go off to the hives, and we it's about half the size of this, it's a box, and you put this sort of cherry smelling stuff on it, and you set it on the hive like a lid, and it pushes the bees down with the sun on it. It pushes this cherry smell. They don't like it, so it pushes them down. So you have that many bees on the box of honey, and then once there's not a lot of bees on it, we'll take the box and we'll put it on the trailer, and then we just do that to all the hives. And then after we've done all of our hives like that, we drive back to the house and we offload them into the garage where we do all of our extracting. And extracting, the process, you have to grab the frame just to make sure there's no eggs or brood on it, and then you hand it to somebody else who is going to cut it. They have to cut the cells off, the caps off, and then we put it in the extractor, which is this machine that you spin, and it spins it really fast, and it slings the honey out of the cells, and then we take it'll look just like the drawn one. That's how it looks once you sling all the honey out, and then we put that in the box and just keep going like that. And the honey that comes out the extractor that was slung, we have a box which it drains into, and then we bring that off to the side, which we have to strain a few times before we jar it. And the girls usually cut and spin, and they strain and jar. Me and Dad, we do the taking off the boxes and everything outside. We try to get as many bees off as we can so there's not too many bees flying around, because they don't really like that.